Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us again. We're here with our Bella interviews, and we are so excited to have Diana from the Latina UpSkill Project. Bienvenida,
Thank you,
Diana.
thank you. Muchas gracias.
We're so excited to have you and just have you share your story a little bit with all of us and all those that are listening. It's really important, and I'm just really appreciative of the fact that you're here with us and that you're present and that we're gonna get behind the scenes a little bit and get to know you a little more.
Yes, thank you, Rocio. It's an honor actually to be part of this interview process and of the Bella community. Really, I think it's gotten to be an opportunity for me to grow and build community with other Latinas that I didn't have access to prior to connecting with Bella. And so I'm honored to be kind of on the other side of the table for today and be sharing my story.
Awesome. Well, let's just get started then. We just want you to start by telling us a little bit about you. So, about you, Diana, the human being.
Yeah.
Anything you want to share with us?
This is a pretty packed question, I think, Rocio, because I think I've been doing a lot of self-exploring and kind of self-reflection, self-development, a lot of self-investment as well. And so I think when I thought about coming on here and answering kind of who I am and what I represent, and I really think of you know uh, my mother really primarily because I'm the mom, or I should say the daughter of a single mom. And that to me, that kind of label in some way or kind of identifier really stood out and really kind of formed who I am to this day.
Mhm.
So I'm the daughter certainly of immigrants, both from a Salvadoran and Mexican background. So I'm both kind of in that gray territory, like Salvia and Mexican, and ni de aquí ni de allá, but really from everywhere. So that's who I am. And my father passed away when I was really young, and my mom raised me as a single mother. After my dad passed around when I was five, the age of five. And my mom is continues to be to this day. She's a housekeeper. And so I was definitely, the niña going with her mom on these long bus rides to the fancy estates of all these rich people's homes, and really like seeing what my life was not, an opportunity to kind of compare and see the differences in terms of rich versus poor, of clean communities versus maybe feeling unsafe in my own community. So all of these experiences really kind of turned into a lot of questioning around what was different, like what was different about me and my mom that maybe like we didn't deserve to have all the things that other people did and these fancy rich people had, you know um giant TVs and swimming pools and all the things that as a kid were just like the oohs and ahs.
Yeah.
So it was really an eye opener, and I think it really got to the point where who I am now and what I stand for in terms of values.
Mhm.
And I want to share those kind of with all of you, and an opportunity to see, especially around kind of the labor force and workforce, an opportunity to develop people. I recognize that um, developing people through kind of the power of education was really important, and I connected more so with developing people kind of in the workforce. So that's part of where the Latina Upskill Project comes into place.
Mhm.
It's really an opportunity for Latinas to engage in those processes of self-development, of empowerment, of confidence building, that I think oftentimes like there's a lot of cultural scripts that really hold us back and really like create us, and we kind of develop the sense of the world that is maybe that we're not as deserving, that we should be extremely humble about, or even to the point where we're like we should be okay with not being okay, right? With all the things that we don't have. And so I've really had the opportunity in the last few years to kind of develop myself and feel like it's really a way to give forward to other Latinas that might be in that kind of place in their lives where developing themselves is really kind of important for them, and going that extra mile of moving forward with their skills and really understanding like what it is that makes us as Latinas amazing, resilient. We just have all these skills that I think are worth sharing to the world, and I want to do that with other Latinas.
I love that. And I love how you've like infused your personal story and your experience into what we're going to learn about next, which is your business. And I didn't realize we had such similar backgrounds growing up. We probably have to
We
dive
do.
more into
Okay.
that after this
Yeah.
because a lot of what you said was resonating with me personally. And I
Mhm.
do believe that every experience you had, whether it was good or bad or indifferent growing up, has shaped who you are as a human
That's right.
today. And then for your work specifically, you've like that's been part of your business and how you
Mhm.
developed that or created that. So tell us a little bit about the Latina Upskill Project. We see the beautiful background and the name is obviously like when I hear that and I see that, like I want to know more. Like what is that
Yes.
exactly?
Okay. I'm
So
glad it's catching your ear, catching your interest. Um, so the Latina Upskill Project actually came about in the last few years. I actually entered this journey of diving deep into being an MBA student and really like thinking about, oh my gosh, why am I doing this? And I think it comes from little Diana, the Anita, being like
Mhm.
an entrepreneur and really like hustling really, really young. I remember actually selling dulces like bolis and what are they? Paletas, all sorts of things from my apartment door. So people, all the neighborhood kids would come knocking and buy stuff. So I remember having money and the opportunity to connect and build relationships with people in kind of this entrepreneurial spirit really early on.
Mhm.
And I think for a long time I lost that sense of connecting with kind of that free spirit in me because I think the way that I see entrepreneurship is really kind of free spirited in the way that you're creating your own path, right? And so this has been kind of my reminder. But I think in terms of giving back to the community, of course, it's created by a Latina for Latinas with the purpose of really kind of digging deep into the skills that I think Latinas we have already, right? This is not kind of a process of reinventing ourselves or building necessarily new skills.
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of opportunity there into self-development with my services, but I think it's really about digging into a lot of the skills that we already have and a lot of things that we possibly need to unlearn, learn, and relearn, right?
Mhm.
So there's an opportunity there to really let go of all the cultural scripts again that have we've kind of been carrying with ourselves for a really long time with our upbringing, kind of unlearning those, learning new skills that better serve us in the time and journey that we are in now. So for me, that's being a mother, being a student, having a 9 to 5, all the skills that really are required of me as part of those new identities that I have, and then kind of relearning some of the things that I've maybe forgotten along the way. So for me, that was like entrepreneurship, or some other things in negotiation, all these skills that I kind of found myself lost in and that I kind of lost along the way. So the intention of the Latina Upskill Project is to really build a community and provide online courses or online services in a way that kind of serves that purpose for upskilling Latinas. I'm still in the process of building, so there's a lot of building to do. And at this time, I think that the service is really connecting with me kind of one-on-one and in a way of like one-on-one coaching. But
Mhm.
I do have a big vision for, being able to connect Latinas with possibly with recruiters, with jobs, good jobs that pay a living wage and all those things. So a big vision for what this is to become, but still building.
Well, that's really great. I think that's a good place to be because as you're building, you're tapping into your creativity and not only that, but like the need that you see, right? So as you're
Mhm.
working with clients one-on-one, I'm sure there's a lot of kind of thematic elements or things that you see are kind of
That's right.
common that
Yep.
folks are kind of, maybe struggling with or working through. And so that can help shape like your future work or classes or curriculum or whatever it is that you decide to do. So I honestly think businesses are always evolving, whether you're
Mhm.
just starting out or whether you've been in business 10 years. I think there's a lot of factors involved in that business owners have to consider. And so the business is always kind of being shaped and evolving even when we don't realize it.
Mhm.
But you're definitely in the space where I think it's such a great place to be because of that like building that you're talking about, the creativity, the kind of I don't want to say experimentation, but almost like,
Yeah,
what
I
works,
think
what's
that's
not working. Yeah.
Yeah, I think kind of for me, it's actually I've called it curiosity, really, in
Uh-huh.
simple terms, because again, I think for me growing up, there was a big sense of as the daughter of a single mother, of really being perfect, of really like I really took that to my heart and just like really thought about ways to just kind of be the ideal daughter, the ideal employee, the ideal, everything that I could be in life as a way I think to um I won't say to repay, for the sacrifices, but to really like make my mother proud and kind of for her to recognize that the sacrifices that she made were not in vain. But I
Yeah.
think, in the last few years, I've gone through a lot of kind of self transformation to really figure out that it's number one, my mom was never asking me for those things, right? She was never asking me to be perfect.
Yeah.
She recognizes that we're all humans and we make mistakes. And two, that I needed to give myself kind of that grace to make mistakes because from making mistakes, that's the way that we learn, that we
Mhm.
learn best.
Yeah.
And so for me, this journey of entrepreneurship has really like opened the doors to just experimenting, being curious, shifting and reshifting,
Mm.
even and just having like an opportunity for ideation, just like
Yeah.
throwing ideas and really building. That's been super exciting for me. So I'm like, yes, let's explore here. Let's figure out what works and what doesn't.
That's great. So you shared a little bit about growing up and kind of selling bolis out of your front door, your house, or we want to know a little bit more about that and little Diana and just growing up, what it was like. Like share a little bit of your childhood and even teenagehood experience with us, and what kind of you think helped shape this desire for entrepreneurship. And I know you touched on it a little bit, but give us a little bit more color with that.
Yeah. So I'm certainly an inner city kid. I grew up in Los Angeles and attended all the LAUSD schools and kind of spent my time in the community in that way.
Mhm.
I think I probably, to be really honest, I think I've lots of my time during middle school was kind of blurred, and even some part of my elementary school. I think it was, and reflecting back, it might be just as a coping mechanism. Like I don't remember those years. Maybe there's a good reason why. But I,
Yeah.
I, I think I really came into myself in high school and college. I had the really great opportunity to actually get connected with a magnet school that really like changed my trajectory. I knew that college was something that I wanted to do, and I knew that I didn't want to be necessarily like one of the statistics, right? And not graduate and all the things. And I was really blessed to be connected with a magnet school who's, I think like college or high school to college rate was like 99%. Like literally
Wow.
every student in the graduating class attended college or got accepted. And so it was at that point where it was like, oh, of course, there's like it's only college, like that's the only path forward.
Mhm.
But there was a lot of like questioning around what I wanted to do in college and who I, a lot of self discovery is still happening.
Yeah.
And so I from high school, I had access to what I would say was a mentor, really like a teacher in my high school who really kind of did a lot of hand holding and a lot of mentorship and positive talks and conversations to me around making sure that I knew my worth. And so it was really because of her that I one applied and two accepted my admission to UCLA. So go Bruins. And really thought like I was like, okay, well, it's one thing to get admitted. It's another thing to actually graduate. Do I have what it takes? There was a lot of kind of that questioning. And I'll certainly say there was like a lot of culture shock in that process. And reflecting back, there's probably a lot that I regret of not diving really fully into my experience as a
Mhm.
student there.
Mhm.
And so I've taken it upon myself now as an MBA student to really like dive into and let the student kind of experience simmer, because I think
Yeah.
that's really important. Just wearing my learning hat, I'm certainly a lifelong learner, and I think that's important. But I think with college at UCLA, I really explored sociology, labor studies, and then kind of found myself in the process of thinking that I wanted to do something where I was either organizing workers or teaching them about their rights in some sort of way.
Mhm.
And at some point, I came across this thing that was HR or human resources, and I was like, what is that? Let me explore that a little bit more. And I did, and so got an opportunity to start it at a nonprofit. My first job out of college was at a nonprofit. Started in a training position as a training coordinator, and then moved into an HR coordinator position.
Mhm.
And then since then, in the last 10 or so years that I've had in the workforce, really moved up as HR manager at some organizations. Really like digging deep into now having the opportunity to create jobs for people, to be at the table, to have the conversations of how important it is to pay folks a living wage, or
Mhm.
making sure that folks know and have information around their benefits or workers' compensation, all the things that I think were really valuable that someone like my mom as a housekeeper did not have access to, didn't even know existed, right? Let alone ever thought about asking for those things, right?
Mhm.
So it's really a full circle moment for me each day, kind of working in HR and talent management or talent development to work with folks to really like empower them around skills and creating kind of learning paths for them to make sure that they're either seeking out promotions or getting paid what they're worth, or just seeking, some sort of career trajectory for them that really serves them and their families, or whatever kind of goals they have in place for themselves.
And throughout that process, like while you were in college and even younger, did you ever imagine that you would fall into this world of entrepreneurship? Because your mom worked for herself, I would think, as
Yes.
a like housekeeper, right? So she was a business owner. She was an entrepreneur because whatever the product or service is, the spirit of and the like desire to and the independence of like taking these jobs on and
Mhm.
marketing yourself and doing the work, like all of that to me encapsulates being an entrepreneur, right? And a business owner. So was it ever something that as you were kind of going through your journey that you were like, one day I'm going to have my own business or I'm going to, work towards that in the future?
Yeah. It's funny because my mom, every year with her taxes, it was like self-employed. And so, my mom never talked about herself as an entrepreneur. I think both her and I really, our definition around entrepreneurship, was this like idealization of what entrepreneurs are. And I didn't see myself kind of fitting in those boxes. And so I don't think I ever thought about entrepreneurship as a path for me. I think there's still, to be honest, there's a lot of like fear connected with, I right now I still have a 9 to 5, and then when in the evenings or whatnot, my 5 to 9 is really like I'm building my business.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of fear connected
Mhm.
to letting go of kind of what is a security blanket in many ways, and being an entrepreneur. I think entrepreneurship requires a lot of courage.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still finding mine, right? I'm
Yeah.
still threading the waters. I'm still kind of in the journey for recognizing that I can to be an entrepreneur, and full time if that's what I choose.
Yeah.
But I, no, the definition, I think for me, the way that I saw entrepreneurship was kind of this unattainable thing. I think it wasn't until I connected with communities like Bella that really I looked around and I was like, oh my gosh, these are all women that look like me, women that have a passion for maybe supporting and helping their communities. Like both social impact and business
Mhm.
can live together and can coexist. And
Yeah.
so it was until just recently that I was like, okay, this entrepreneurship stuff, like, yeah, I think I am that, and I that is a goal of mine, and I can work towards it. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I think entrepreneurship, is something really special because you're able to dictate that. You write your own story,
mhm,
right? So whatever that looks like, it could look like part-time forever if that's what you want, right? If that's what's working for you. If it could be part full-time for some people, but it's not for everyone, right? So I think the beauty of that, and I totally get what you're saying. I think it's the same thing like growing up. I think entrepreneurship was like you're an entrepreneur, you're like on Forbes magazine, you're like
yeah,
some big inventor,
exactly.
right? And I feel like I had a very narrow view of what that word meant
Mhm,
until you kind of come into the exploration of like you said, communities where there's so many different versions
mhm,
of who an entrepreneur is and what they do and what they look like. And, and then you realize that it's this massive solar system that's just everywhere, right? And entrepreneurs really are everywhere you turn, I feel like.
mhm,
And
mhm.
so that's really interesting that in kind of part of your reflection, I think that you're learning or you learn through community that there were the different faces of entrepreneurship, I guess you could say,
Yeah.
and I think that that's very true because now I look back and I see my parents as like, you're entrepreneurs, and it's just it's like almost like you look at the world a little differently too. I don't know if that's been your experience, but at least for me, it's last several years, it has been part of that like revelation of like
It
the beauty
definitely
of.
it definitely resonates. I think there's parts of just the way that entrepreneurship looks like. I think for me, the reason why I had such narrow view, one was, yeah, definitely like entrepreneurs do not look like me, they do not sound like me. But I think I was also tied completely to this idea that entrepreneurship was about business and was about money, right? How do
Mhm.
how do I make the most money possible without a care for the planet, for the people,
Mm,
for everything else that my values were,
yeah,
tied to. And so for that reason, I think I was like, there's no way, I'm not in it for the money, right?
yeah,
But
yeah,
after digging deeper, it was like, okay, I can be an entrepreneur, um, and still think about building community, and
yeah,
still think about how I can give back,
yes,
and still be kind of socially conscious. And so I think for when I had that realization, I was like, wow, okay, like I this is actually something that I'm interested in, and I want to continue exploring.
yeah, yeah. I have another question related to that, but I'm gonna come back to
Yeah.
another one first, which is about the concept of your business. So we heard kind of like what it is and why you're passionate about it, but when you were kind of sitting in some place at some point thinking through like what is this business going to look like and feel like how was that process for you? So tell us a little bit about that concept creation, and was there any one person or something that kind of not only inspired you but influenced you to like take that step to actually
Hmm.
start building that business?
I think there's been recent experiences in my life that have really influenced kind of the way that I've conceptualized my business. I
Mhm.
think there's been a lot of, in the last 5 to 6 years, well, I should say in the last close to 7 years, I became a mom. So motherhood really kind of shifted my view in terms of the opportunity to give back to new generations.
Mhm.
I think it reshifted my mind around uh, not just thinking about the present but also future Latinas, right? My daughter is certainly a Latinita. She's six, but she's all the things, and I imagine that she will identify as a Latina, and so really like considering and thinking about what it means, one, to be a Latina currently, but also for future generations. Like what are the things that I did not have an opportunity to do or to learn about? What are
Mhm.
the skills that are really important now and in the future of work that are going to have a big impact in the way that I show up to work or the way that my daughter shows up in the workplace as well. And so some of the things that come to mind are like things like negotiation skills, communication skills, public speaking, right? These are kind of the skills of the future, I think. And we know that there's a lot of talk around AI and a lot of talk about robots taking over our jobs, but there's a sense of that that's real in some ways. Of course, I think technology is here to support us and in our jobs, but I think there's also the humanizing or being human that I think are all those skills are going to be even more so important. I think having empathy, connecting, having emotional intelligence, right? All of these things that are really skills of the future, as I call them.
Mhm.
And I think going back again to the concept that I found, which was like, wow, I think as a Latina, I have all of these skills already. Like just the way that
Mhm.
I grew up, the way that my lived experience has really like served in teaching me a lot of these skills.
Mhm.
But currently they're not necessarily packaged. Maybe I don't recognize that I have those skills, so I don't really
Yeah.
talk about them.
Yeah.
I don't know how to talk about them in a job interview. I don't know how to use or implement them in kind of different spaces.
Mhm.
So that was kind of some of the conversations that went into kind of conceptualizing the business itself. I think the other factor that is really important for me is around comunidad, is around community building. And so for me, the best way that I thought about putting something like this together for is through community learning, right? It's not
Mhm.
just about the individual. I think as Latinas and Latinos, our community is really centered around comunidad and familia. And so those are some of the values that certainly align in the way that I grew up as well, and the way that I think will kind of serves our community.
Mhm.
And so there's an opportunity here for us to learn in community and support each other as Latinas, as women of color, to really, one, like share our stories and recognize that we're not alone, but two, really come together and do all of that kind of unlearning,
Mhm.
learning and relearning
Mhm.
in a way that feels familiar, that feels comfortable for us in our community. And I think that's with other Latinas I've found.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think you kind of touched on the related question that kind of went back to like what you were starting to uncover a little
Hmm.
earlier, which is like the purpose, the bigger purpose and mission of your business, right? And I love how you talked about like the intersectionality between like profitability as a business owner, right? Like wanting and needing that and that being part of your
Hmm.
reason for having a business, but then also knowing that it could coexist, and it does for probably 100% of the women, at least that I've interviewed and I've talked to, is this desire to like serve community in different
Hmm.
ways, this like
Hmm.
social impact kind of spirit, this this kind of the greater reason for your why for having your business. So tell us a little bit more about that purpose and that um mission, and then also like dovetail that into the vision, because I know you kind of teased it that you had like a bigger vision, but you didn't really tell us exactly like what that was. So this would be a good time to share a little bit about that too.
Yeah. And I'm probably teasing because again, we're still building, but I think, the and purpose has always been the fact that I identify as a first gen, Latina. I recognize in our communities and my friends, my amigas, my neighbors, all the women and Latinas in my life really have this beautiful souls, a lot of this like um really high energy spirit, and are really just smart go-getters, problem solvers. And I
Mm,
think oftentimes I find that the language that we use in our communities to describe ourselves or describe each other doesn't tend to align with all of that we have and that our community
mhm,
has. I
mhm,
think we know that there's a huge kind of pay gap for women, and specifically for women of color. I think we get paid something like 40 something cents to compared to a white man, Latinas do. And so there's a huge pay gap, there's a huge knowledge gap as well in terms of skill building. And I see really the need right now for Latinas to just rise up, to stand up, and to really like recognize the power within that we have and that we hold. And I think for me it's like it's this fire to to just like that's ignited to say like enough. Like I think as a community,
mhm,
Latinas and the world right now needs leaders, and I think Latinas can really rise to that occasion. I think we just need to reconfigure and reshift a lot of our mindset, and again those cultural scripts that really have held us back.
mhm,
Calladita te ves más bonita, right? Like be humble, all these things that just like really kind of are really like stones that we're just carrying for no reason. And for me it's been an opportunity to just kind of let go of the things that no longer serve me. And I want to see my comunidad be lifted up. I want to see our folks just like my mom, right, to have had an opportunity, and even to this day, to even as a domestic worker, to have the opportunity to get paid living wages and to find good jobs with benefits, and or be an entrepreneur, whatever she wishes to be. But
mhm.
recognize that the skills that she has and what she's worth. So I'm excited to build community primarily. I'm excited to give back to people like my mom, people like myself, people like my 6-year-old, right? So all the Latinas in whatever shape, size, or form, and whatever kind of stage of their journey they're in, I think we're valuable, and we're here, so let's show up.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I mean, I think the message definitely resonates. And I think that everything that you're saying, I know is genuine and authentic. And that's exactly how you need to share your business because it's very, authentic. It's very transparent. It speaks to the heart as well as the mind. And so
Mhm.
I think that folks need that a lot today. I think what you provide in your business, specifically the service that you have, the coaching or what it might turn into later with classes or whatnot, like
Mhm.
folks are searching for that and sometimes don't know they're searching for it
Mhm.
until it comes to them or they kind of, stumble upon it somehow, right? But it's definitely a service and I want to say like an opportunity to learn more about yourself and reflect. And so whether it's to your point, whether it's career or not, I think that like what you offer is really great for folks when they're wanting to grow, when they're in transition with something, when they're trying something new. Like I see you supporting
Mhm.
women at like all stages of their life, really,
Mhm. Mhm.
because it's about putting back the learning on them, right? On us, on ourselves, right?
Right.
Because to your point earlier, I love how you shared that, we already have those qualities. We already have a lot of it inside. We can't sometimes muster the courage to show it or we don't know how
Mhm.
to, right?
Mhm.
Like have it show up, but it's there. So that's really beautiful. I think your message is this is like really resonating with me, and I know I'm not the only one. I know folks that are listening
Yeah.
right now, it's touching them here. So, so thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. I think, it's my story is not unique, and I think that's what's is really like the opportunity, right, for us to
Mhm,
join in community and really like share on the fact that our lived experiences are very much alike. And being a Latina, I know in terms of cultures and religion and languages is so vastly diverse, but a lot of our experiences in many ways really like bring us together. And I think there's a lot there to tap into. I think it's for me, it's been motherhood. It's been some of the other kind of stages in my life, like you shared, where this has really like the learning, unlearning, and relearning has really helped me in those times where I really needed it.
mhm,
And I do see the opportunity and the power of kind of that transformation,
mhm.
where the Latina Upskill Project can support them. So
Yes,
I'm glad that you see that too.
yes, I love it. I love all of that. Well, we know that with this beautiful journey of entrepreneurship and building come the struggles and the hardships and the roadblocks, right? And so we definitely don't want to negate that or like gloss over that, right? And
Yeah.
so wanted to have you share a little bit about some struggles as a business owner, as an entrepreneur that you've had in building your business. What are some of those things that have been maybe tough, but that you've also kind of learned to navigate or are learning to navigate?
Mhm. That's a really good question. I think there's a huge learning curve, even for someone, that has had some of that like schooling and now is as part of an MBA program. I think it's not until you're actually like hands-on, sleeves rolled up, that you're in it, that you really start to see the challenges. And especially as a solopreneur, right? As a owner myself, there's no one here to like hold my hand. There's no one here to tell me what the right versus wrong decision is, right? So it's
Yeah.
it's a lot of this exploration, a lot of trial and error, and I think that's really uncomfortable sometimes, right? I've had really been kind of at a place where I've had uh, the opportunities to be supported, to have mentors in my life, and in kind of the career support. I've been blessed in having that, but I think there's, you know, either limited or I haven't kind of tapped into other mentors and how it relates to my business. And I think
Mhm,
partly in that is because there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there, but there's finding someone that actually aligns with what you're building or the values and mission that you have in mind. It's a little bit different. It's a little bit
mhm,
more challenging. And so
yeah,
there's certainly been like the learning curve around all the technical stuff, like how to put a website together, how to access capital, how to
yeah,
create newsletters and create social media content, and all those buckets that I specialize in HR and talent development, so I know how to do training and development really well, right? But it's all the other things that come on the basis of having a business, the finances, the accounting. Oh gosh.
yeah,
So it's all of those things that are a lot to navigate, and there's a huge learning curve.
mhm,
I think the way that I've navigated them best is really, again, tapping into community, tapping into organizations like Bella, or Bella's partners as well, to really like see, okay, like now I'm building the community that I need to find the mentors that are really going to support me,
mhm,
and the folks that align with the values, right? The
mhm,
organizations that I've aligned with, like Bella, are not the Forbes, like, or whoever those big organizations are, that do not service people like me, right? That do not service the small startup or
mhm,
the solopreneur who has zero capital, right?
mhm,
And just
mhm.
has an idea, right?
Yeah.
They're probably these big accelerators that you need some sort of VC funding, and you need
Mhm.
all of these things, and it's just not me, right? And
Yeah.
so not yet, well,
Mhm.
but so it's really opened the doors to finding those communities, going out of my way to connecting with fellow Latinas that are also building businesses themselves and that align with my values. I think that's the best way that I've been able to kind of navigate this. And then for me, it's like calling all the mistakes that I make or the
Mm,
things that I thought, the reshifting. I've just called it curiosity or exploration. I've kind of reshifted the way that I define those things because
mhm.
otherwise if I call them mistakes and I call them, all something kind of on the negative end of how I define them,
Yeah.
certainly a lot of negative self-talk begins to happen. And so for me, I've through entrepreneurship really granted myself a lot of like the grace to make mistakes, to explore, to be curious, and really like give back to the community. And I think my I would think and I feel like my community is willing to accept me in that way as a business owner
Mm,
and is okay with recognizing that I'm still building,
mhm.
and that my intentions are good and I want to support fellow Latinas. And so um I have grace for myself and I think my fellow Latinas do as well. So
Yeah.
it's been kind of a journey day by day of curiosity and exploration.
That's really great. Yeah, I think that exactly what you're saying about the struggles are very. I'm sure there's a lot that have encountered that, especially those that are listening about just. It's really difficult, I think, to find. Well, not difficult to find, but maybe it is to have like your specific focus area as your business. So
Mhm.
your service base, you're not selling a product per se. You're on the service side of things.
That's
And
right.
on top of that, it's about the self-development, maybe like the career navigation, right? Then you kind of your niche starts to get more like specific.
Mhm.
And although there's a lot of commonalities among like startups or like certain, building blocks you need to have in place, at the end of the day, your space is unique. And
Mhm.
there's others like you, but finding those folks to like really connect to kind of brainstorm or have that thought partner to like, where did you go for this or how did you think through that? That's sometimes even harder, right? To like
Right.
find that space and it could be scary and it could be confusing at times too, so I think you going about it the right way in terms of finding those communities that align with your values because that's
Mhm.
huge. Sometimes we
Mhm.
find ourselves in these spaces where okay, it's service based, it's specific to coaching, it's but you're not around people that share your values as a person and what you want for your business. And so that makes things challenging too,
Mhm.
right? So I think there's definitely a lot to think through. And, it sounds like you've kind of hit some of those road bumps, but you're learning how to navigate those and you're coming to it with a place of grace and gratitude. And I think that's the right kind of way to show up through that. So thank you for sharing that. I know that's going to be helpful for a lot of people listening.
Yeah.
And so, kind of on the flip side of that, what advice or counsel would you have for those women that are listening right now to this interview that are thinking about starting their business or kind of in the beginning stages of forming their business? What kind of words of wisdom would you have to share with
I think my words of wisdom. Ooh, I think there's an opportunity and I'm sounding like a broken record now, but I think the aspect around community I think has been really important.
them?
Excuse me. So I think finding community has been really important. I think in terms of lessons learned so far, I think it's an opportunity to recognize that I might not have all of the answers, right? There's
Mhm,
aspects of my business that I am an expert in, like the training, the curriculum development. And then there's aspects of my business that I need help with, right?
mhm,
And really coming to terms that asking for help is okay. I think that's been one of my unlearnings, like asking for help is okay.
mhm,
I don't need to know all of the answers. And so really being strategic around who I ask for help
Mhm.
of,
Yeah.
really being strategic of how I spend my time as well. I think part of what I was sharing earlier around being difficult to find mentors or communities that align with your values. I think I've had the opportunity to tap into a lot of resources from accelerators or other programs, and come to find that some are probably not necessarily a good fit for me. They were a good fit in terms of learning a lot of those technical aspects around creating a job and
Mhm.
starting a business, I should say, and um, how to launch, how to turn
Mhm.
from something from an idea into a business. But
Mhm.
some of the spaces were not necessarily what I'm doing, what I'm trying to develop. And
Yeah.
so recognizing that and just accepting, like, what are my learnings in this moment and in this space, and leaving with that, and taking what I can and what I want to accept into my business.
Yeah.
The other thing that just popped into mind was that with building a business, there is a lot of information out there, right?
Mhm.
If I were to Google it, Google's just going to give me hundreds of thousands of searches around how to start a business.
Mhm.
Sometimes there's a lot of unsolicited advice, and other that is solicited, and people have different journeys around how they've gone about building their own businesses. So I think
Yeah.
the wisdom here, or the learning, is really, you know, about creating your own path. Take what you see fit, take what serves you in those conversations, in those programs, in the community building, and really, like, begin to develop and be strategic about what you're building. I think I'm obviously I think of myself as a lifelong learner, so I'm always tapping into resources and always watching all the videos, but on YouTube, and just like doing all of the things. But there's so much of it that I can't be all the things,
Yeah.
and I can't wear all the hats, and so I have to sift through all of that and really figure out who I am, what my mission and what my purpose is, and come back to that often, because in that exploration and curiosity, it's really easy to also lose focus of what I am building, right? Sometimes there's so many problems and so many potential solutions that I could provide my customer, that it's easy to kind of say, oh yeah, I should be doing that. I should be doing coaching and online courses and webinars and this and that and all the things. But
Mhm.
really, like, being reminded of coming back to my mission and saying what is really what I want to build here.
Mhm.
That's been really helpful, because it's oftentimes hard to sift through all of that information that you're getting, either. And again, because I'm on the side that learning is a good thing, I see that as information is obviously positive. But you just have to kind of sit back and sift through it strategically, I think, and come back to your mission, to get reminded, to make sure that you're building the best solution for your customers.
Mhm. I love that. Those are beautiful words of wisdom.
Mm.
I think come with experience and come with you as, still building your business. And I think with that comes a lot of wisdom. I think some folks might feel like, well, I'm starting out. Like, what do I have to like share? Say, you have a lot to say and share, because this is the cusp of where a lot of people are and where a lot of people struggle to move to the next level. Right. And
Mhm.
so, any and all of this that you're able and willing to share about your experience, I think is just going to help folks that much more not feel alone, feel inspired, and get those kind of ideas of like what to do next or where to go,
Mhm.
how to kind of find that energy to keep going. So thank
Mhm.
you so much for sharing that. And we're
Of
actually
course.
getting to the end of our interview, and have really enjoyed my time here with you and getting to know you a little more and having you share your story with everyone. And so as we're kind of closing out, is there just anything else that you want to leave the audience with, including, maybe how to get in touch with you, or just something you have coming up, or anything that you want to share with the audience just to close us out?
Thank you, Rocio. I think, first of all, shout out to you for creating a platform where entrepreneurs and Latinas and Bellas can come and, share about their experiences. I think that is truly valuable. I've been certainly watching all of the replays and on your YouTube channel. So,
Yay.
thank you for this platform. I'm building on Instagram primarily a community. So there's a start of that, the beginning of that on Instagram. My IG handle is Latina UpSkill Project. So feel free to what is it, to follow and do all the things. But I think for me right now, it's really important to kind of do a lot of the exploration with my customer around those themes and really the pain points of us as Latinas
Mhm.
around that self-exploration and career navigation, as you mentioned earlier. So I'm doing a lot of that with supporting one-on-one through coaching. And so if that's something that's of interest, happy to get connected through IG as well. You can send a direct message and connect with me that way. And then looking forward to just building community, building online courses, building, virtually primarily to start, but I think as for the future, building in community in person as well. So lots of big ideas and lots of dreams and goals for the business. I think for now, feel free to connect on Instagram and follow kind of my entrepreneurial journey from there. Happy to get connected with everyone.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Diana. This has been so beautiful. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Make sure you follow Diana and Latina Upskill Project and all the beautiful things that are to come from her business. And with that, we will close out our interview. So thank you so much for watching. Until next time.
Bye.
Adelante.